Ladies and gentlemen, we are live!
Good evening. It's a Monday again.
We're back.
We're back.
We made it. We made it.
We made it through another weekend. Hell yeah. Welcome, everybody.
Good weekend, too.
Yeah, super good weekend, even though that we about froze our Patukas off in downtown Indy for about a 5-7 minute walk.
Yeah, thanks to the people that our guest hat is wearing, too.
Yep, right in their hometown.
Downtown Indy was packed.
Oh, yeah. They're crazy. Crazy. Welcome to Just Got Off Podcast. I'm Dano. That's Big John Steed over there.
Did you hear that, Dano?
What?
Did you hear that? Here it comes.
Whoa.
Oh, my goodness. Who's in the house?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Brandon Wimmer, 410 Wing Sprint Car driver. John, carry on. I've got stuff to do.
Uh-oh. Man, how's it going? I haven't seen, it's probably been about 4 or 5 years since I've been over in Ohio.
It's going good. No complaints. Ready for winter to be over. First race was supposed to be last weekend in Ohio, and it got canceled. So we're hoping and praying this weekend the weather cooperates so we can get some laps in, get that addiction going with the fumes and the dirt and all that good stuff.
Oh yeah. So where's your guys'? So your first race is supposed to be at Atomic then?
Yeah, it was supposed to be Atomic last weekend with John Schubert's car, and it canceled obviously because it was snowing. But
yeah, that was crazy.
So we're gonna give it a try again this weekend back at Atomic. Forecast doesn't look great again, but hopefully it changes by the time the weekend gets here.
Yeah, it's always hit or miss this early. I remember when we first started out running at TQs. I'm surprised they even schedule anything in March, because especially up here, because I mean I thought it was early for them to be scheduling stuff first or second week of April. Just you never know. You end up losing 75% of your races in April because of rain anyway. So it's always a bummer. You actually just kind of set up for May to be ready to go by then.
Yeah. I mean, you never know. I think I had some memories on social media pop up of 2 or 3 years ago, and we were racing, and it looked like it was 60 or 70. So he
Yeah.
did. You never know. Some years you'll by May you got 10 races in. Some years you're getting your first race in the first of May. So you
Yeah,
never
'cause
know
it
what's going to happen. But
it did hit like 60 or 70 last week, and then I got up to let the dog out Saturday morning, and I was like, "What is this?" And I looked outside, and there's snow everywhere. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh."
You
We
know
just
how
took 10 steps back.
you know how I judge what the weather's
yeah,
going to do throughout the seasons, like especially through winter.
He's a golfer. He golfs in any weather. Don't let him kid
That's
you.
true, but I've watched the woolly worms for years. The
I
little
don't believe in
little
those,
yes,
though.
fluffy. Yeah, I saw a bunch
yep.
of them this year that had a black tail, a brown middle, and a black head, and that usually represents snowfall and bitter temperatures when the worm is black, mild when it's brown. So it kind of worked out pretty good this year.
Yeah.
So
So for to start out here,
yep, go
we
ahead, John.
for our audio listeners, you're just gonna have to miss out. I mean, we put a pretty cool slideshow together. Brandon's been racing sprint cars for 23 years, so he's been in quite a few different machines, and we've actually put a slideshow together of some of them. Some of them we couldn't find all of them, but we've got a slideshow put together going up on one of our TVs up there that anybody that's watching on YouTube or Facebook can follow, or Twitch too. Um, but so you're gonna miss out on that, all you listeners. Should have joined us on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook. But yeah, so let's talk about some plans you got coming up this year. I mean, how many races you guys got on the schedule? How many different cars you plan on running?
Yeah, I'm gonna roughly 30 races. I'm gonna split time between John Schubert's car in Ohio and then the Dennis and Betty Gamey car out at Knoxville. Um, kind of works good for me because uh, I'm a part-time racer, and it helps, budget-wise for the different teams. It works to where I can race for both and kind of hit and miss. And we have a business at home here in Indiana where I work during the summer 50, 60 hours a week. So I'm
Right.
kind of just a weekend racer now, but
Yeah,
but
you
it
did
works
this
to where
full
I
time
can.
though.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
30 races when you work 50, 60 hours a week's a lot because you get off work and you just take off and head to wherever we're racing that weekend and race Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're usually driving home and start the week over again Monday. So there's really no stopping. And then my daughter is 8, Kennedy. She's into all the sports, so she's always got something going on. So we don't know what free time is. We can't sit still very long around here.
I'm right there
That's
with you,
about
big
how our
guy.
5-year-old's getting. He's getting pretty heavy into baseball, and last year he dabbled in some soccer, and now he's talking about football. So he's getting to that age now to where he's pretty active and wanting to run around, do a bunch of stuff as well. So yeah, that comes up quick. And like I said, we got a 1-year-old running around the house. It keeps us pretty busy too.
Yeah,
So
and that's what works good about both my car owners are great to work with. They work with me and my schedule, and I mean, there's I might race 30 times, but there still might be a weekend or 2 that I'm off where I can go to my daughter's softball tournament or do something with I have a 5-year-old son, Caden. He's not into sports yet, but I can go do something with him or that type of stuff. Family's very important to me, so
of
I try
course.
to do as much as I can with them, and it helps that they love going to the races. He's the one that has the racetrack in the pits and has all the cars set up, so he's always asking when we get to go again. Just I don't even know if he really watches the races. He just wants to hang out in the pits and play in the dirt. So
That was
um,
my next question is has it rubbed off yet? Because when I first started dating my wife, Owen was 3, and I've actually got a picture up back here on the wall where he was actually at the track with us when I was still running the midget. And he's got a shirt on it says my last name and number and stuff. And um, I've got some plans. I'd like to try and get him in a go-kart to run a little bit this year. And now my 1-year-old, when Dana and I sit here and watch races, she sits on my lap and she watches them and goes vroom vroom. So
yeah.
they're already getting bit by the bug. I mean, your kids are old enough that you started racing at a very young age too. I mean, is that something that they've kind of voiced that they would like to try and dabble
um,
in?
Not really. My daughter's been into sports a lot. Um, like I said, she does every sport, so she's real athletic and likes that type of stuff. She likes to go watch and she's my number one fan. She's the one sitting there screaming in the stands. My wife has some good videos that she
That's
posts on
awesome.
like Facebook and stuff of her yelling and cheering for me. And she's the first one to come in the pits and ask what happened. If you know, so she's right there. She's my number one critic, but that's what I love about it. My family, like I said, my family's really close. That's my number one thing is family. So I love having them there with me. And my son, he's 5. I he's not there. He's not ready, but we might
If
try to
he's
get him
playing
some
in the
laps
dirt
here
with
next.
yeah. If he's playing in the dirt, he's close.
Yeah, I mean I started racing go karts when I was 6. Ran those for several years around North Central Indiana. Then jumped in mini sprints for a couple years. Camden, Peru, uh,
Logan Sport
different tracks.
probably.
Logan Sport, yep.
Yeah. That's some of them
And
northerns.
and then when I was 15, that's when I jumped into the sprint cars. So that's all I've known. I'm 37 now, so
There's some go-kart
ever since
So
I
flags
what was
was
that
5,
across
I've
the
like?
raced
screen
every
now.
summer.
Yeah, perfect
What
timing.
was
Good.
that like going
Yeah.
from a mini sprint to a sprint car? That's a heck of a jump.
Yeah, like it's hard to explain because it's been so long ago now that it's hard to remember. But um, when I was 15, we decided we were going to put our own family car together, 7TW, which comes from my grandfather. He owned Cars on the World of Outlaw Tour for years. So I mean, there's pictures of me when I'm 1 or 2 sitting in the seat of Joe Gertie, Greg Hodnett, Jeff Swindell, their cars that my grandfather was the owner of. So I
Awesome.
grew up around it.
Very
That's
cool.
all I've known. And it's kind of got a yard go kart my 5th birthday. Made a lot of laps in that thing, and I still have it today. And
That's
Really?
when
awesome.
we turned
That's great.
6, we started racing. And I mean, I really hasn't been very many weekends off since then. So it's when the summer or spring gets here, that's what we do, and it's what we've always done, and we love it. And um, that's kind of why, even though as life changes and you have a family and you have the business you got to run, and that's what pays the bills, but I still race every weekend somewhere. I love it, and that's part of my life, and probably always will be.
Whether you're
Yeah.
actually in the car or racing to a prior commitment baseball game, basketball game, volleyball, something. You're racing all the
Yeah,
time, man.
And that's kind of how I got to is, family's pretty important to me. And I was kind of telling you earlier, that we had my daughter, so everything kind of got put on hold, to get things ready for her. And then we had the wedding last year, so there was a lot of funds that were put over into that. And we're a family-owned operation too, so a lot of things got put on hold. And but I still went and helped a lot of teams at the track. I traveled with KT for a weekend or so, and helped Justin Lewis out and Tyler Kendall down at Lawrenceburg, and was helping other various drivers out still to get my fix. And I kind of like helping people almost more than I do driving. I think I'd have more fun driving other people's stuff just because I don't have that stress, every week of having to be up there and prep it. I mean, it's our shop's 45 minutes from us, so it was one of those deals that, like you're saying, full-time family and you're working full-time. It's very hard to boggle that time and make it work, and there's other sacrifices that have to be made. So that's pretty cool though that you got a couple car owners that work with you and still allow you to do something that you love for sure. Because I mean, you're a very talented driver. I know that John's had a lot of great luck with you, and you brought him a lot of success and happiness too.
yeah, and I mean, that John came along in my life at a good time because I 2014 I was with the Hammers and kind of full time racing still, and then my daughter was born that year, and that's kind of when you look at life a little different and say, hey, I
Yeah.
need to stay home and take care of the business and pay the bills
Right.
and still do, but I still want to race. I can't just quit. It's in my blood. So John came along and said, well, just come. And long story short, Trevor Ramsey worked for our family team when we had it. And his uncle's Roger, who is neighbors with John Shubrick. So they called up. 2005 was the last year of the family car. 2006, I was kind of just working at Bennick Enterprise and racing when I could, nothing real constant. and they called me up, say, Trevor says, "Why don't you come run my uncle Roger Ramsey's TQ?" So they bring it up to Montpelier, and I run it, and
I think I
there's some
remember
good
that.
stories. There's some good stories about that we joke around about. That I said I think I made 20 laps around Montpelier on 2 wheels because the car was so tight the whole night. And, but I don't even remember how we finished. But it was a good time, and I enjoyed it. And then it wasn't the next year. I knew John had cars. I really didn't know John at the time, and they kind of hooked me up with John and said, "Why don't you just come down and run the car at Atomic, or it was Chillicothe, whatever you want to call it."
Yeah, I think when I
Um,
first ran, it was KC. Yeah.
and Kate, it's had several
Yeah,
names, but
yeah.
so so I went down, just started running for him off and on between other cars, and I got to where I was like, I've always traveled. I love going to different tracks. It's the challenge of it, of adjusting to different places. And at the time, I was like, I really don't want to just run Atomic every weekend.
Right.
So, long story short, John puts a new car together and buys a new Kistler motor that was top notch. And we started traveling a lot more across Ohio. And it kind of worked with my schedule where if I didn't want to race that weekend, or if I had something I needed to do, we took the weekend off, or they did something else, or they had somebody else drive it, and it just kind of snowballed um, to what it is today. And I think I'm on year 6 or 7 with John, just kind of part time when they run. When I want to run, I can go run it, and they've got a good group of guys that take care of it. I can just show up and drive it, and it's worked pretty good. We've won a lot of races, Southern Ohio, across Ohio, and I've just really enjoyed my time driving for him.
Yeah,
And that probably tickles him to death. And I think we might actually just go ahead and jump over to this segment, and we can come back and kind of ask you the questions that we had for you. And then I got some questions that the fans asked us. We've touched pretty hard on this John Schubrooks, and um, this segment I kind of wanted to honor to him. It's called the common denominator, just because I've got a real big past with him too. You had mentioned that you had talked to Trevor, and at the time, also backtrack when I was just a little kid. My uncle was working to help Larry Martz out, which was Tate's dad. They had a full midget that Tony Stewart and Tony Elliott and Jay Drake and Donnie Beechler, just a lot of really well-known guys were racing that, and they were running at 16th Street Speedway in Indianapolis. And I actually lived across the street from Larry when I was a little kid. And then Tate got old enough, and he was racing the TQs and traveling with the Ford Focus midgets and stuff. And my uncle continued to help and travel and help out with Tate. So that's kind of how I got my fix in racing. We didn't really have the funds when I was younger to get into it at an early age. I just used to go over to Rushville Fairgrounds track every year. Every once in a while, I'd go to Shelbyville, Greensburg. Didn't travel around a whole lot, but I'd pick up the tear-offs and hook the big parts on my ear, and our house would kind of run like you could run full circle. And I don't know how many belts I ruined on my mom's sweeper because I just ripped them damn things off, running around the house, and she'd find them. But no, there was one year I was 12 or 13, and my uncle and I were there helping Tate and Larry out, and Tate was running Roger Ramsey's car at the time, and John was there, and he was parked beside Roger, but he was kind of by himself. I mean, they were kind of helping him when they could, and things get chaotic in a race night. But my uncle and I just kind of jumped over and was helping John out, and it was a Saturday night show, and he appreciated it and asked if we'd be back the next night. We're like, yeah, of course. So we showed up on Saturday and helped him out on Saturday as well. And after that, we kind of exchanged numbers, and kind of the rest is history from there. I mean, he would pick me up in the old Astro van. He was still toting the TQ around with that thing. He'd drive over from Ohio to all these Indiana tracks, and he'd pick me up from school. I mean, if it was a Friday race at Bloomington or Gas City, he'd show up and have it parked in front of my school, and I'd just walk right out, get in the van, and we'd go to wherever we were going, So, but I traveled with him for about 3 years, helping him out, told him that I've always wanted to race, and one year he turned everything over. Said, this is a contract. You know, I'll be the car owner. You take everything I have, TQ. You guys maintain it, run it, fix what you break. He said, if you destroy the thing one night, he said it's not a big deal. Said contract's over. You just give me everything back as is, and that's it. You won't owe us anything. And so we ran for him for a couple years. He always kind of pitched in sponsorship money to help out and stuff. And we had a sponsorship dinner every year. And this is how nice of a guy John is. That second year, he was like, I want to sell you guys the car. You know, you guys have done a great job. He goes, I want you guys to take it over. You know, this is your guys' car now. But he said, because of the contract, he said, I have to have a dollar amount on there to sell it. So he said, I'm just going to sell it to you for $1. Okay, so we show up at my house before this banquet dinner, and we give him the dollar, and we sign the paperwork and stuff. His wife's with him, and, you know, everything's all good. We leave, go to this banquet, and his wife goes ahead and kind of walks in ahead of us, and he stops me and my uncle and my dad outside, and he hands us an envelope. He said, my wife don't need to know anything about this. He said, this is between us. This is your guys' sponsorship money for next year. He said, don't open this until everybody's gone today. Said, okay. So banquet happens. Everything's over. Everything's kind of, you know, going away. And we open the envelope up at the end of the day, and we're kind of looking at it. And he put $1,000 check in there for a sponsorship for the year, and that $1 bill. He put that dollar bill back in that envelope. So it was just like, man, like, yeah, I mean, he's always went above and beyond, you know, to help us out, and I've noticed that he's gave many of other opportunities to people that, you know, may not have ever gotten to a sprint car. I mean, even once he got the sprint car, you know, he turned me loose in it non-wing. I think there's only been a couple guys that's run him non-wing. He's usually kept the wing on him pretty hard for all of his cars that he's had, but. Yeah, what a guy. I mean, I've that's probably been the most fun person I've ever drove for.
Yeah, and I've drove for a lot of car owners over the years, and I it's hard to say I haven't had more fun with anybody else than John, because you're just there to have fun, and obviously we want to win, and I get down when I don't, and when I go to Ohio, I know I can win, and when we don't, I don't always have the best attitude after, but he's the first one to come up and say, "Good job." He goes, "It don't matter
Always.
how we finish. The car rolls on the
Yeah.
trailer. We can race another day." And like I said, he's not afraid to spend the money where it needs to be spent to make the race car go fast. And
Right.
he's kept me going the last 5 or 6 years. If it wasn't for him, I don't know that I'd still be racing today, just because going back to the work schedule, where a lot of teams, when they want you to commit, they want you to commit to a series or a points fund here or there. And with our business, agricultural based, that was where I was kind of stuck, because I told him from the beginning, I said, once harvest starts in the fall, I have to quit. I have to stay home and work. And he's
Right.
never said anything about it. He goes, "You just tell us when you want to come race, and we'll have it ready." And great group of guys. Scott Cool, Roger Ramsey, we call him team manager. He keeps us all in line and organized. And then Trevor Ramsey still helps. I've been friends with him for over 20 years when he came and helped us on our family sprint car team. So it's just like a close family over there, and I enjoy going and racing for him when I can, and look forward to going again this year. Like I said, I split time between him and the Knoxville car. I've made the Knoxville Nationals once, so that's kind of my goal, is I want to make it again. So, and Dennis Gainey has gave me a great shot to do that this year, so that's kind of why I'm splitting the time between both of them. I'll be out in Knoxville a lot, but going back to John, whenever I've said I think this will make us better or faster, it's usually there the next week at the racetrack. So
Yeah,
he's not
he's
afraid to
always
do
like
what
that.
makes. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. My first feature win that I ever got, my only feature win actually, was in his TQ. I was 15. I wasn't even allowed to be driving in Indiana at the time. We raced on a Friday night at Gas City, and he flipped hard. like real hard. I mean, it broke all kinds of shit on that car. And he felt so bad because the next night we were supposed to drive over to Macomb, Illinois, and race over there in the IMRA series. And Terry Goff, 16-time TQ champion, he came over and he gave us a piece of paper and he said, "There's a hotel here in Greenfield." He said, "I want you to stay at this address." He said, "This address is for Randy Litteral's shop." He said, "I've already got a whole list of parts. He's going to be there and he's going to have everything set out." He said, "This is my address." He said, "You go pick up them parts at that address." And he said, "You come here at this address that's mine at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning." He said, "We'll get you going down the road." So we did. We showed up and they got the car back together. John paid for all that stuff. We made the haul. He had a yellow TQ, kind of. Well, it's up there in that picture. You can see it right there. But we made the haul all the way over to Macomb, and won with a black tail tank on there. It was an ugly looking car that night, but we ended up winning that night with no brakes. We ran out of brakes with like 8 laps to go.
Sometimes the prettiest race cars are not the winners.
No, yeah. But he was tickled to death. It was a fun experience.
Yeah, that's like going back to what I mean, this is my 23rd year in a sprint car, and I've done World of Outlaw Tour, I've done All-Star Tour, drove for a lot of great car owners, but I can't say I've had more fun with anybody else except for John and his group of guys because they're just there to have. I mean, obviously we're there to win, but they're there to have fun and have a good time, and you don't have the pressure of you have to perform or else. It's let's go do the best we can, have fun, and see if we can't win while we're at it. So
Yeah.
that's I've really enjoyed that the last few years. And like you said, having the family now, it changes the way you look at things in life, and um, it's been a good fit for me over the last several years.
He's always had that mentality too. I can't tell you how many times when we did weekend trips where, I mean, he was always laid back. He'd go through a glass or like a whole bottle of wine a night in the hotel room, and we'd go eat good food. I mean, he didn't care. I mean, he wasn't there to, some of these teams, they'll travel up and down on the roads on McDonald's and stuff, and stay in cheap hotels. You got cockroaches as your little bunkmate, but John is always one of those that he's wanted the best of the best, and he wanted to be the best. And like you said, he don't mind to spend money to if it's right. If it's done right, he gets good results from it. He'll keep doing it. So
Yeah.
but awesome, man. Well, I think we'll jump over. Dano, you want to ask him some questions too? We've kind of left you quiet
You're
here.
fine. I'm over here watching the meters bounce. It's awesome. But you talked about winning. One of my questions I had for you is, what is your most memorable win of your whole career?
It'd probably be the Dirt Cup out at Skagit in Washington. I was driving for Roth Motorsports, an '83 junior car. It's the biggest dollar amount too. I think this was 2007 or so. It was 25,000 to win. I got the good old Happy Gilmore check up in my shop. I always joke around. I don't care about the trophies and all that. I just want the Happy Gilmore check to hang on the wall at the shop. So, but I've been, like I said, I've been very blessed. I've been lived all over the United States. I've been to Australia, been to New Zealand, Canada.
Awesome.
I've had the opportunity to race everywhere. The World of Outlaw Tour, the All Star Tour. Um, and I've got to see a lot of amazing places, meet a lot of amazing people. So it's a racing family. I mean, if you're part of it, you understand. You might not see somebody for 10 years, but when you see them at the racetrack
Yeah.
again, it's like you never missed a beat. So
Yeah.
it's pretty special, and like I said, it's in my blood. I mean, my grandfather owned cars from a little kid. I've always been around it. I've been all over racing. Been very fortunate. Got the start in the family car. I think we ran the 7TW about 5 years. And then after that, since then, I've just drove for car owners. So say the last 18 years, I've just went out and made the connections and had good enough results to be able to get in different people's cars across the United States and race. So I've been very fortunate and very blessed to have all the opportunities I've had. So
How
I
tough
just
is
love.
that? How tough is that outlaw schedule? I mean, I know I worked for Andretti's as our chief mechanic through the 2016 season and then half of the 2017. I think in 2016 we had like 60 to 70 races on the schedule. A lot of that was local. We did the Florida and the Eastern Storm and the Sprint Week, but a lot of the stuff was kind of local, like Florida, Indiana, Michigan, stuff like that. So a lot of that was just Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. How demanding. I mean, for me as a crew guy, it's physical, and drivers have a lot of physical demands too. But a lot of people don't think about the mentality that you have to bring every night with the Outlaws. I mean, sometimes you guys are running on Monday and Tuesdays on an 80, 90, race schedule. So how hard was them two? Because you ran two tours in a row, correct, with them?
I we ran I think 80% one year. I was still in school, high school, so
Oh
we
wow.
ran almost the full season. In 2005, we actually ran the full season. But yeah, it's my situation a little different because it was a family car. Like I was out there working on it too. I was part of the crew, I guess you could say. But yeah,
Awesome.
it's the up and down part of the road is it's tough. I mean, you live in a hotel out of your suitcase. There's times you don't get back to the shop for a month, so you're gone. You have everything in the trailer you need, but if you tear stuff up, you're up all night. If you got to race the next night, you're up all night getting that other car ready to go to race the next night, and that goes to the mental side. For a driver, the mental deal is the hardest part of it all. Is to have a bad night tonight and go tomorrow and act like it never happened and just start over. And um, it's a character builder, that's for sure. You learn. I learned things I don't think I could learn anywhere else in the world by being a race car driver and having your own team because you see the financial side, you see what you're spending, you know what you got part wise, motor wise. You're out there working on it, which that's one thing my grandfather always pushed was you're going to know how to work on these and how to do all the maintenance and how to build a car if you're going to be out there driving it. So, and I'm
Yeah.
thankful because to that day, I can do all that and I can help set the car up. Or if I have a crew chief, I can tell the crew chief what I feel and what I think I need out of the car or what I think we should do. So that's helped me over my career, but it's a mental side is the hard part because it's a grind. I mean, it's just nonstop, and there's I don't know how the crew guys do it. I mean, the pay for what the pay is and the hours you put in, it's you just have to love it because it's
Yeah.
7 days a week, sun up to sun. Well, not even sun up, sun down. It's 24/7. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a
It's
it's a
tough.
grind, but it's also awesome because you're at different track all over the United States. You meet different people everywhere, and um, I wouldn't change it for anything. I mean, I'm fortunate to have had the opportunities I've had to do all that and to be all over. Met some great people, car owners, crew members, fans, everything. So it's some memories I'll carry with me the rest of my life, and um, hopefully I can pass this on to my family as I get older. So we'll but I still want to race as long as I can, as long as I have the opportunity. Like I said, I've drove for car owners for the last 18 years, and it's just all about networking, talking to people, becoming friends with people, and if the results are there, there's usually somewhere you can go and race. So I'm been very lucky, and I'm very fortunate I'm still racing today.
And it goes back to, being like you said, a team owner, a car owner, working on your own shit and having to fix it if stuff breaks. Um, one of the things that, comes to my mind when I see the results that you have, and this is, I guess, just a car owner mentality of me, is you don't tear a lot of shit up. I mean, you run really consistent. And I mean, even if you guys don't have spectacular finishes and you end up like seventh or eighth, you're not at the bottom of the board very often. And if you do, it's usually stuff that you don't have any control over.
Yeah.
It's not because you're out there making careless decisions and putting you guys in a pretty tight pickle. So I think that's one major plus that car owners look at is, some of them want you to, have the wreckers or checkers mentality, but the people that want to stay in this for a long time understand that you have to keep cars together and finish seventh instead of 20th on some of these races to get to the next race.
Well, and that's if you ask my grandpa, he'd probably say different because that's where I'm lucky that I was in the family car at first because those first few years we tore a lot of stuff up. So
Yeah, Dave Darlin,
uh,
is one of the best, and I'm sure he wrecked a lot of shit when he first started too. I mean, that's just part of it. I mean, I know I did too, in the TQ, and it's one of those things where you got to find that edge. You gotta learn. Well, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
that's for
it
me.
takes it took a good 5, 6, 7 years to find where the limit is, and like you said, you tear a lot of stuff up. But again, like this is my 23rd year, so there isn't a whole lot I haven't seen. Um, I think the biggest part is just now that I'm part time is I'm not out there doing it as much, so it's hard to keep that rhythm going and that
Yeah, seat
consistency.
time.
But
Yeah.
the seat time, but still being out there most weekends, we can be pretty competitive wherever we do show up.
Evolution wise, how much has changed on these cars in the past 23 years?
When you
That
look
has
at
been
it, not
hardest for
much.
you to
It's
adjust. I guess shocks are probably the biggest.
The shocks are the biggest. Yeah, I mean, you used to be a standard oil shock where you just whatever it
One
was is
tube.
what you put
Yeah.
on, and now it's the double adjustables. Everything's adjustable, and you got to know your numbers and where you want it to be. And that's one thing coming up with these new tires that we have this year
Mm-hmm.
is it's going to throw everybody for a loop. You're not gonna have a base setup until you figure out what it is. So that's where we're going to kind of be behind here at the beginning of the year because the Outlaws started on them this past weekend. So, and
Now you're talking about the
we're
tires that's got the holes in them.
yeah, the new Hoosier tires, they're a
Yeah.
completely different
It's a D
tire than what
compound
we've
tire, I
had.
think,
So
isn't it?
it's going to be yeah, finding the new normal it's gonna take some time, and obviously the Outlaws and those guys are going to have a lot more laps to figure out where they need to be, where we're going to be a little behind, but
Right.
I'm hoping we can get it figured out pretty fast and get caught up and get going once the season starts.
Here's a little fun fact too. Those holes in the tire. So when I was working for Andretti's, when I first started working for them, they were on the Beast cars for Bob East, and Bob was actually helping out quite a bit, and doing the setups and stuff. That was actually one of his ideas. I don't know if he shared that to Hoosier or if Hoosier. I don't know how that developed over in these last few years, but Bob actually came to our shop and he said, "What if we drill holes? They've already got little holes here." So I shit you not, they set me up with a DeWalt drill with a drill bit, and then they put a stop. They made a stop that you had a little set screw to lock, so you can only go so deep. And then
Yep,
he came in with a piece of paper that had a printout of like all the squares and stuff on a tire
Wow.
and had dots on where he wanted holes. And I drilled the shit out of these tires. Like, I bet you I probably drilled 3 or 4 tires. And then we went and tested them, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I think the wear looks good." So not only was I grooving and siping and doing all this to all these new tires, he had me drilling holes in these damn things too. And I mean, with Andretti's, we would buy tires to last us for, a third of a season. And we would mount, I mean, we'd spend a whole week. We'd mount everything up on all the wheels we had, measure them, see what they pressured up to and how they measured up, and then be like, okay, well, that would probably be a hot lap tire, or that would be a heat race, or this would be a feature. And then that would tell us how we needed to groove them. And I can't tell you how many tires I drilled holes in. So whenever they came out with this design, I'm like, man, I was doing that with a DeWalt drill back in 2016. I spent hours doing this, and they put a mold together, and they do it in half the time I do.
yeah, I just got some this week for the team out at Knoxville, so it's the first time I've seen them, and um, yeah, I don't until we get some laps. It's hard to say what they're really gonna do, but it's definitely gonna throw a wrench in everything because they're the last we've been on the same tire the last couple of years, so you know April comes and okay, this is where we're gonna start. So now
Right. I
we're
hope
gonna
it's one
start
of
where we
those.
used to and hope it works. Yeah,
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 I hope it's one of those that doesn't let out too much heat and then start sealing tires and stuff. Like you get a big long green flag run and then everything cools off during caution and then seals over and then everybody's just skating because they just ain't got
yeah,
nothing.
yep.
That's the biggest thing with tires is I mean, it's one of those things that it's kind of, I know the prices and stuff have went up, but everybody knows the quality of tire you're getting, and it's to change something like this that could potentially make it worse than what it already is, cost effective wise, it's a risky move. But if it works, great. I mean,
it is what it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Got to play with the cards you dealt, man.
Yep.
yeah. So, go ahead, Dano.
So, do you think that tire is going to make the competition better across all fronts? Like guys that are mid-pack, do you think that they're going to have a better chance just because of the tire, or do you think like because the World of Outlaws started last weekend that those big funded teams are just going to just take off with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say until we actually get some laps on them how much it's going to change or what it's going to change. Um, I know they'll have an advantage because when they show up, to a local track in Ohio or to Knoxville, they're going to have, say, 10 races before we get any laps at either track. So they're going to kind of know where they need to be, where it might take us a race or two to figure out where we want to need to be. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't really know. I haven't talked to anybody yet since this past weekend, which was the first weekend on it. So I don't really have any details from anybody on what they thought. So
And I don't think it could be
until we,
too bad because I mean everything that happens in the world stays on Twitter. So, and I haven't seen
Yeah.
anybody posting pictures of blistered
no,
tires or
I don't
anything
think
like
it's
that
going to
from the
be that.
races.
I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. It's just going to be when you get in your comfortable place, it's always hard to make a change. So it's
Nobody
going to
likes
be hard
change. Yeah.
it's going to be hard getting figuring out where you need to be now. Just the same as it was when we went to the good years and back to the Hoosiers. You had to find that base setup again, and that's kind of where we're at now. So, I mean, it's not like it's the first time it's ever happened, and it probably won't be the last.
I had a non-wing guy, I won't name drop on here, but when we first switched to the DRCs, he kind of helped us out there at Andretti's quite a bit on kind of getting, accustomed to those types of chassis and the flex and what the car's like. And we were kind of asking him stagger, like, what they kind of like for those. And he's like, I don't measure stagger, dude. He said a 94 is a 94, a 96 narrow is a 96 narrow. And we're like, really? And he goes, yeah, I know that I either want a 94, 96 narrow, a 96W, whatever. He said, just throw it on. And we're like, you really don't measure stagger? And he said, you find somebody that can stand on that damn car and measure the stagger while I'm ripping 8,400 RPMs. And he said, then I might give a shit. But he said, them tires are doing so much stuff when you're, they're that hot and changing. He goes, a lot of it's all your foot. He said you can't just solely rely on Hoosier to hit their chalk marks for you. You just kind of got to get in the ballpark, and the rest is in your hands.
Yeah.
And he was pretty successful. So I mean, we weren't doubting him,
What is probably the most misconstrued or misunderstood thing that you think someone would have about dirt track racing, sprint cars in general?
It's hard to say because I only know sprint car racing. I really don't know the outside stuff. I'd say the biggest deal is how much work and how professional. I mean, it's ran like a business. I mean, which it has to be because the amount of money you're spending, no matter if you're a local team or if you're a World of Outlaw team, you're spending a lot of money. So when it comes to it's ran like a business. The financial side, we need to spend money here to make it better or to improve. We don't maybe not spend money here right now because it might not help us as much. And then just the sponsorship, trying to, even if it's your local store, or if you're trying to go after a national brand, the sponsorship side and sponsors mean so much anymore just because of the cost of everything. So it's, I guess, when I've talked to people I didn't know and told them that I race sprint cars, and they just think, oh, that's grassroots, hillbillies, rednecks out racing, where it's actually, I mean, every team, no matter big or small, runs it professionally and runs it like a business. And there's a lot more to it that you don't see if you just show up to the racetrack. Between the hours put in the shop during the week to the travel to if it's your buddy that comes and helps you every Saturday, or if it's somebody that's paid to come work on the car every weekend, there's there's a lot of little details that you don't see if you've never been on that side. So there's so much to it. It's not when everybody sees you show up and said, "Oh, look, this driver's here. This driver showed up here." There's so much to it that you don't see if you've never been on that side before. So it all goes back. It's a lot of work. I mean, like I said, between racing, working all week, and then racing on the weekends, and you turn around, and before you know it, you're starting over, and it's Monday again. So
Yeah.
it's a cycle that never stops.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's crazy how many people will come to a race and they think that you literally just unloaded that car from last week and you just all you did is just hit it with some Windex and a rag and pushed it off. I don't think they realize the maintenance program that goes into it. And I mean, even at the track, all the stuff that you got to do to prepare for a race night either.
Yeah, John
And
and
just
I
working
talked
in the
about this
heat,
on.
you're playing the elements too. So
Yeah, John and I talked
Yeah,
about
we
this on
always joke
episode 1.
what's that?
Yeah, we always joke around about the heat in our trailer with John. We turn the fan on to turn the AC on out there, so it's the open trailer.
He's still got the open trailer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still pulled by the Astro van with the aluminum open flatbed trailer.
So
So
I'm gonna go ahead and leak one of the fan comments, and it comes from your buddy Trevor Ramsey. When are you going to ride in the van?
I followed that van down the road enough in my own car to say I will never drive that van. I mean,
Why?
it's once it
It's
gets
not
to
bad.
about 55, it's scary to watch from behind.
That's because
It
it's
gets a little
John's foot.
squirrely.
That's because it's
Yeah,
John's foot.
but
It's not. Well, yeah, and I haven't traveled with it enough with a sprint car to know, but I've got a lot of miles riding and sleeping in that van with the TQ stuff. Traveling with him for those 3 years and going over to Illinois, and man, that is an infamous van. I mean,
oh
it,
yeah, it's
it's
got
it's. I would have never guessed, back in like 2007, 6, 7, when he first started coming over here, that he would still have that thing. I think even my parents and I were talked about it, like when he got the sprint car stuff, and then he had at one time he had 4 sprint cars, and I was like, man, he's gonna have to get a truck and a bigger trailer, and he always made it work. If he had 2 cars at the track, somebody else would just pull the other one. He still
I
had the
mean,
open trailer.
he's had T-shirts, man. You wouldn't believe how many T-shirts we've sold because right on the front's the van with the trailer and the car on it and all that. And
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
still got to get one of those.
it brings a lot of attention. I mean, it's like the old school where you can see you wouldn't be the amount of people that come up and talk about that.
Yeah,
It's cool in that side of it, but then the other side is you can't carry. It's why we don't travel much with it because you can't carry what you need to go up
yeah.
and down the road. I mean,
There's no way that I would ever travel with an open trailer now,
yeah, you
but
never know if it's going to be there when you wake up the next
right.
next morning.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's man with it, especially the money that's in a sprint car. That's crazy. But yeah,
Yep.
it's I think the cool thing about riding in the van, besides the history of it, is it is pulling an open trailer. And like when you pass a car that's got kids and stuff in it or people that aren't familiar with what that is, it really draws attention. And it is so awesome to
Yeah.
look over at the reaction on some of the people's faces. They're just like, wow, what is that? Who's in that thing? Who's in that van? It draws all kinds of attention because people want to know. They're curious.
Definitely
And
not
I think that's
Brandon
cool for
Wimmer
the
in that
sport
van.
when you get some of those guys that, yeah, we got to get Brandon Wimmer in a van. That's what Trevor said.
If you next time you talk to Trevor, Roger, John, ask him about going across the bridge across the river to go to Lawrenceburg. That's enough to tell me I'll never drive in it or drive the van.
I think that thing's got
I did.
650,000 miles or something on it now.
Yeah, I've lost track. It's got a lot.
Yeah, and I think it's still the original motor. I think he's had to have the transmission rebuilt in it, so which
Yeah.
is no shocker with what he's doing to that poor thing. But I think it's got over 650,000 miles on it now, which is incredible.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a fun little deal too. So, I guess one of the questions I had is already covered here, but You know,
I'm
if
gonna
you
have to
could go
move and get a
back.
phone charger here.
Oh, okay. But if you could go back, I mean, you said that you were still in school when you were still doing the Word of Outlaw stuff. You know, if you could go back and give yourself, your 16-year-old self, any advice on, um, I guess anything. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's racing or the family stuff. You know, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing would be just to don't take anything for granted. I mean, you're like you said, that looking back on it, I wish there was things I would have, say when we were out west, I wish I would have let's take let's take half a day and go see this, or take half a day and go do this. It's because
Yeah,
when I was 19 and 20 and on the road, it was all I cared about was I wanted to race and wanted to win races and do what I could to do that. Looking back on it now that I don't travel as much, I just wish there's so many amazing things out there to
there's
do and see.
scene.
I wish I would have took more time to do that. I mean, I did do a lot, but I wish I would have took more time because it's um you just take things for granted really easy when you have everything, everything's good, you have everything you think you want. Um when you don't have that anymore, you look at things differently. So it
It's
makes
hard.
you
It's
look
hard
at
with that mentality too, because like you said, I mean, we were discussing it. It's you're busy. I mean, you're busy all the time, and your mind's not always thinking about all that. I mean, when you're on the road driving for somebody, you're all you're thinking about is results. You know, you got to do
yeah,
good in order to stay in that car, and especially if that's a dream that you're chasing. Like it is priority instead of going to a museum or going to catch a movie or stuff like that. It's hard to balance that, and a lot of people don't realize you know when that's how you're making your money. Like it's hard to shut everything else,
yeah.
shut that down, and focus on other things.
Yes, I mean that's yeah. I mean you're like you said, you're so focused on one thing that you don't look at all the big picture. And if I going back at it, I would have took when I had opportunities to go do this or that, I would have took them because they might not come again. So it's
Right.
um like I said, I've been very lucky, very blessed to do what I've been able to do. And um it takes a lot away. I mean, you take time away from your family, you take time away from everything to go do it because you're on the road full time. I mean, you're home for there a couple years. I went to Australia and New Zealand. I think I might have been home a month out of the whole year because I would race, and then I'd
It's
fly
crazy.
fly to Australia and race there for a month or so, and then come back. And when you get back, it's time to go to Florida. So it's
Phew.
everything happens so fast you don't think about it at the time. So it's and looking back now, uh, I did some amazing things and still have done amazing things because of my racing career. And like you said, it gets in your blood, and you don't. It's all you want to do, um, and that's why I still race part time. Is because I love it so much that I'm very competitive. The competitiveness of going out and trying to win and get what you can, the best out of the car, and beat your competitors every night is something I thrive to do, and it keeps me going. It makes me look forward to the weekend and race season altogether.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool that you're that down to earth because there's a lot of racers that have the same competitive nature, but they're very like selfish about it. I mean, like you're very humble and you're very understanding of what you've done and thankful for all that. And some racers, and I can't judge their mentality, but some of them are just they're never satisfied. There's always another step, and it's one of those that
Yeah,
I got to keep going. I got to keep going. They never sleep, and they just keep on. Just they stress themselves out, and they push themselves to the
yeah,
point to where, like you said earlier, you end up having a lot of regrets because you don't take the time to sit down and realize what you've accomplished, and think back where you came from, and that you had that family car that you started out in, and have that work ethic. There's a lot of people that forget about that. They get caught up in it, and then before they know it, it's too late.
yeah. And I mean, it's easy to do, and I think that's part of the coming back to. having a family and coming back to work for the family business is you realize how hard it is to make that dollar. I mean, no
Right.
matter what it is you do in life, it's you work your butt off to make whatever you make an hour, and then you see how fast you can spend it on a race car. Makes you appreciate all those dollars those car owners spent for you, or my family, or all the car owners I've drove for. It makes you appreciate that a lot more on their hard-earned money that they spent to let you go play in their race car. So it's
Yeah,
um
and now your daughter, because I seen you post the other day that you've got her in like an indoor facility for I'm assuming softball. I've got my
yeah,
5-year-old and kind of the same thing. We got one around here, and he's been doing that every Monday night, and he'll spend half hour, 45 minutes there training, learning. Man, baseball is expensive. These
yeah.
to go out there and play isn't, but like the ball bats and the mitts, heck, like the mitts, they're almost $100. The bats, some of them baseball bats are like, I mean, I'm not getting him anything that expensive this young until I know he's extremely passionate. But there's some of them ball bats out there $400. It's like
Yeah,
holy
and I mean
cow.
it don't matter what you do. I mean, like you said, if it's racing or your kids playing, you're gonna spend money to help them get better if that's something they want to do. And that's she love softball. She loves it, and um, through some friends, we seen these where she goes to some practices and get more batting practice and this and that. And
Right.
if she's willing to put in the work, I'll do what I can to help her
And that's what I
get
told
that
Owen.
training and stuff. So
Yep,
it's
and that's what I told
it,
him. As long as he works as hard as he does when he's there, I have no problem to keep bringing him. As long as he's
yeah.
passionate about it and he works hard, I'll keep buying him the mitts. I'll keep buying him the expensive ball bats. Whatever it is, as long as he's focused and keeps growing and improving, let's go.
And
Yeah,
I'm
that's
with you, buddy.
I've
and
always
I
said that
and I look
I have the most like 4G expensive hobbies: golf, guns, guitars, and stuff that goes fast. And even
yeah,
from a
no,
spectator standpoint, it's like it's expensive for me and the old lady to go to races and see guys like you, but it's not near as expensive as what you guys spend. I'm not even monetarily, just the time. Time is money. Time away from your family, like you said, you were home like a month out of the whole season. Like that's just time away from, things that make you relax and things that make you take your mind off of racing. I can't imagine me not being in this house but for a month. So coming from a
yeah.
spectator
I mean that,
point, I appreciate everything that you guys do on and off the track.
yeah, and at the same point, I mean, if it, we spend all them or car owners, whoever spends all the money, and we spend all the time to go do it. But if it wasn't for the fans, we wouldn't have racing
Right.
in the first place. So it goes back to that racing community and that racing family. It doesn't matter what side of the family you're on, we're all family, um, and that's what I love about it is that you see somebody in need, either they're sick or a family member or they're going through tough times. That racing community is always there to pick you up or to help
Mm-hmm.
you out if they can, and
Awesome.
that's something special that you don't get everywhere. So
Right. Now, we were talking about the costs and stuff. So I've got a fan question. Comes from Dustin Cooper, and he's pretty familiar. He's one of my buddies. He's pretty familiar with the racing, but he was trying to throw a question out there that some fans just don't think about. And his question is, what would you estimate would be a total cost to go racing a sprint car for one night? I mean, that's tires, fuel in the truck, fuel in the car.
once you
Just
have everything, or
yeah, kind of. So basically, you take your motor rebuild and then divide that up. Just kind of break it down, just to go race one night. Pit passes, food, everything.
I mean, there's a lot of variables, but even I mean, just to go do Ohio or a local show, you're gonna have a couple tires, fuel, pit passes. You're gonna be 2 to 3 grand in one night of racing,
I
and
figured it
that's
would be at
after you
least
have
that.
everything.
Per car.
If you go to if you go to if you go to a World of Outlaw show, you're gonna spend 4 or 5 grand because you're gonna have to use more tires to keep up. It's gonna cost you more, to enter pit passes and all that. I I mean, when we try to go after sponsors or to try to get somebody to help you or to somebody to sponsor a race, you're looking at 2 to 3,000 for one night, and that's just to get you by after you have everything. So, I mean, for the cost of motors now, if you wanted to build a car that's ready to go out on the track, not any spares, anything else, you're looking at 80 to 90 grand if you buy a new motor and you
Isn't
buy
that
all new
crazy?
stuff. So
That's insane.
yeah, I mean it.
Because I remember
obviously you
like
can do
here,
it cheaper by
yeah, I remember here about 10 years ago, kind of like one of the top notch motors. You could be around 50 or 60. But yeah, here in the last decade, the costs and stuff is just they found technology and stuff with the CNC, ported heads, and you need to get the custom dome pistons, and I mean, there's so many variables, all the lightweight stuff. I mean, it adds up real quick.
and it goes back to what you were talking about earlier. What's changed the most is shocks and motors. I mean, you could you can buy a $65,000 motor, but it might not run as good as the other guy,
They
it's
pop the
beside
first
you in
night
the pit
too.
stall. Yeah, and that's just because they have a different cam or they have different compression. There's different heads, different injection. I mean, the package is what matters, and that's what makes it hard to go run with the Outlaws like on a half mile because they run half miles all the time. They've got it figured out. Their motor's gonna when they show up, they're on the edge of burning it up or blowing it up, but they have
Yeah.
extras and they can do that. Where at local smaller teams like what I drive for, you only have one or two motors, so you're being safe on the fueling side so that you don't burn it up. Because if you do, you might be done for a month or you might be done for the season.
Yeah.
You get it
And
fixed. So
probably more than that, because when I left the engine shop here in October, I mean, just to get a custom set of pistons made, it was like a 6 to 8 week wait just to get pistons.
Yeah,
So
availability
that's
of
2
parts is
months.
huge,
That's
too.
2 months sitting out if you just need a new piston. It's crazy.
yeah, for the Dennis Gainey car at Knoxville last year, I was running it part time too last year, and we burnt the motor up. It was in May, and we didn't have it back till almost end of July.
That's
So it
wild.
took, it was about 6 weeks that car was down because that's the only motor he had. So it those are all things that matter it's easier to compete at the local level because you're not pushing everything to the limit motor wise as you
Right.
are with the Outlaws. Because you go on that World of Outlaws show, a tenth of a second can be
Is
10
everything.
spots, 10 qualifying, 10, 10 spots in qualifying, which is can be your whole night.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's a pretty special deal to be able to hear this. You know what I mean? I mean, it's
That just
infamous.
scared the hell out of everybody.
That's okay. We'll make sure
yeah,
everybody's
that's
full
what
awake.
I was joked around about with people last year is the Friday night show of the Knoxville Nationals and the 6 car with Gainies is the Friday night program. We were quick time, but we were the first car out. So I said, you don't get quick time when the Outlaws are around very often. Then you don't get to hear that said with your name. It kind of stung a little bit, but it's still quick time. So you can't not be happy about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that one kind of goes into another fan question I had. It comes from Stephen Hill. What are your plans for the season as far as like some of the crown jewel events, like the Knoxville Nationals, the Eldora Million? Just what are kind of your how many of those do you plan on attending?
I'll be at several of them. I'll be at the Million and Kings Royal. We'll be in the Gainey 6 car for that. I'll run the Outlaw shows at Atomic and Lawrenceburg with Shoebrooks, just because they're smaller tracks and we can be more competitive with that car there. So, and then obviously in Knoxville Nationals, I'll be in Dennis Gainey's car out there for that because we're going to run a lot out there. That's kind of our focus with the 6 car this year is Knoxville. We'll bring it out. Gonna bring it out for Kokomo, the high limit race in May,
Cool.
and then we'll have it at Eldora for the Outlaw shows in May to get some laps so that we're hopefully ready for the Million and the Kings Royal at Eldora. So those are the biggest ones. I'll be in Ohio for a lot of local shows in Southern Ohio with Shoebrooks. Be at a lot of weekly shows at Knoxville. Team DGRD number 6, just to get ready for. That's kind of our to get ready for nationals and be prepared for nationals because obviously that's our crown jewel. So
Right.
we want to be as ready as we can be for that. So um, I guess you'd say Eldora, Knoxville Nationals, and then Southern Ohio, the 2-day outlaw show at Atomic, and then Lawrenceburg's always a big weekend for us down there and
Yeah,
shoot
that's
in John's
Memorial Day
cars. So
weekend, correct?
yes,
That's
you
yeah,
got
that's
end of
that on
May,
that
Memorial Day
Monday.
weekend.
Yep, yep.
So and then I'll pop in and out with a lot of, or not a lot, several all-star races and better paying races throughout the Midwest. So when you look at it from April till September when harvest starts, there's about 30-ish races I'll be at, but um, it seems like every year you're ready for race season to start, and before you know it, it's over. So
It
just
happens
looking
quick,
forward to
man.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Like I said, it's my 23rd year in sprint cars. Um, just thankful that I've had a lot of great people behind me, car owners, crew members. My family's always stuck behind me and pushed me to keep doing it because I know I love it, which means a lot to me. So
Yeah.
just really looking forward to it.
I've got one more fan question that I've got, and then Dano could ask you any of them that he's got as well. This one comes from Ronnie Werdeman. You've talked about running quite a bit on like the local circuits as far as like Atomic and stuff, running close to home. You run with a lot of local guys, so in your opinion, who are, or is there somebody specific as far as a driver that stands out in the local series or circuit that you feel like hasn't been given, kind of like that opportunity you got to travel and branch out and travel with some of the bigger, like you were talking about the All Stars and the Outlaw. Is there anybody that stands out that you feel like has the talent that they just haven't got into the right equipment, or they don't have the funding to give them that next step? Is there somebody that you feel like's under the microscope that could advance?
Yeah, I don't know that he's necessarily under the microscope, but racing Atomic all the time, my number one competitor has been Cole Duncan. I mean, he's a great
Yeah.
racer, and I think he could do great out on the road anywhere, whether he doesn't want to or I know he started a family and has a job just kind of like me. Um, but I've got to know their family really well over the last several years racing at Atomic a lot, and it seems like every night at Atomic, it's either me or him, and unfortunately, it's been him a lot more than me. But he he's won a lot. He's won several All Star races. He's won some bigger races, and he wins at Atomic all the time. And I think if he had the right opportunity out on the road, Outlaws, full time All Star, whatever it be, I think he could be pretty successful. They're great family, and um, just enjoy racing with him. And I kind of see myself in him, even though I'm quite a bit older than him. Is just because he's the same, has a
He's
job,
just got
works
that
it.
hustle.
He's got the hustle. They put the work in for their own family deal, and they for what money they do have and spend on it, they do pretty dang well with it. So it's I think Cole Duncan would be the guy that I would say if given the right opportunity, could be really
Who's paid his
successful out
dues.
on the
Yeah.
road.
Good
That's
deal.
awesome. Yeah, I've heard a lot about Cole. He's I see like because I try and follow as many results as I can through the year. I can't make it over to Ohio a whole lot. I told John we need to change that, and I need to get over there to watch you guys and hang out some this year. Um, but I try to follow his results and stuff as he did with mine when we were still racing. And that's one of the names that's always up there. So yeah, he's a good shoe.
Yeah, yep.
All right. I'm gonna get one more fan question here. It's from Michael Googs. What would be your dream ride, Brandon? Whether the owner's alive, active, passed away, dream sprint car ride for any owner, any car you could ever be in, or a combination of the two.
Tough. I mean, I
You got quite a
I mean
history book
I've
to
been
look
in it.
back on here in
The fan.
23 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's always there's so much history with our family in the 7TW. I mean, I would love to be able to get that going again. and be able to travel with that and just the history behind it. I mean, my
Awesome.
grandfather won all-star championships with Joe Gertie, and then they were on the Outlaw Tour for whole childhood. He teamed up with Bob Kramer, another local business guy, and they were on the out. They one year they had 3 teams: uh, Jeff Swindell, Joe Gertie, Greg Hodnett. Um, and there's just something about having your own team where you can control being a hired driver for so long. There's you're up to it's whatever that team or team manager, team owner, they make all the decisions and you run what they want to run. Where having the experience with the family car, I kind of know what suits me best and what I feel like I get around the track the best in. Where if I had the family car again, I could make those decisions and put together what I feel like would be the best opportunity for me to succeed. Obviously, that takes lots of money, but like I said, I've drove for a lot of great car owners. I've drove for Rick Ferkel, um, the Hammer, Randy and Lisa Hammer in Ohio, um, the Roth Motorsports out west, and several little teams. I've drove for teams out of Missouri, Wisconsin, California, all over. I've been
Man,
very lucky. It's just when you look from my experiences, if when you can have your own family deal and you can make your own decisions, it puts confidence behind you because okay, this is what I feel like I need behind me or underneath me to make me feel comfortable and make me go as good as I can. So it would be bring the 7TW family car back and be able to run my own team again.
That's cool. I can dig that.
that's special.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
that's
special
special.
thing right there. Like that'd be great. Well, I'll go as far as to say that if you ever do that, get a hold of me. I'll do something to support that because I'm behind that 100%. I love the family cars. I love the cars that aren't always pretty and have the best graphics and things like that. So I got your back, dude. My man.
There you go.
That's pretty cool, man. So, well, I mean, do us some shout outs. You got some sponsors and stuff you want to thank where people can find you on social media and stuff.
Yeah, just uh, Twitter and Facebook's at Brandon Wimmer. So that's easy. Uh, my sponsors. That's one thing about I've been fortunate about is just having those connections with sponsors that I've been able to keep over the years and take the teams with me. I've got Butlerville Seats, Simpson Race Products, obviously. Um, Desiree Burkle has been a huge supporter of mine over my whole career and um, helped keep me safe, helped me keep me up to date and the newest stuff I can be in that's going to help keep me going over the years like I have. Um, All Star Performance, Lane Automotive. They've been huge supporters over the years. It's just hard to name all of them, but like I said, a lot of the people I drove for has been car owners that put their own hard-earned money out there to put the car together. So there's just a lot. I could never list all of them. I'd forget somebody if I tried, but a lot of great people that have been behind me over the years that have helped me grow as a race car driver and keep going to where I am today.
That's awesome, man. Well, we greatly appreciate you taking the time and coming and hanging out with us and shooting the shit, sharing some stories, and just kind of seeing what you were up to this year.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's good, and I'm looking forward to the season. And definitely got to make it out. Get with me and make it out to one of the races, either here in Ohio or if you can make it up to Kokomo for the high limit race.
Yeah, yeah.
Can
When
you,
is that high limit race?
Beginning of May, I think 2nd or 3rd.
Okay.
when
Yeah,
you
I'll
go
have to
when you
see
go to
what we're doing.
Knoxville, just swing through Terre Haute and pick me up. I'll ride on top of the trailer.
You don't want to.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's not the open trailer. You're good. You're good.
I don't care if it's the open trailer or not.
That was the cool thing about the open trailer, though. You get down to the car wash and it's an air dry.
Right.
You don't even have to unload it off the trailer. You unstrap it and you just roll it back and forth so you can get the
Yeah.
tires and roll it forward and clean the other side and then strap her back down and go.
Money savings, yeah, and time
But
savings.
no,
Hell yeah.
again, like I said, I'm John Shubrooks. I'll be in Ohio with him, and then Dennis and Betty Gainey with Team DGRD, the number 6 car out Knoxville mainly, but I'll be out here in the Midwest some. I'm thankful for them putting me behind their car, and they both had great equipment. So we're looking forward to the season.
That's awesome, man. Well, we greatly appreciate it. We'll let you hop off here. I'm sure you guys got to go tuck some kids in, get them all riled up, and get settled in. We all got to work tomorrow, so.
Yep.
Yep. You guys have a good one. Have a good
Thanks,
week.
Brandon.
About that time,
Appreciate you.
man. It's
Look
time to
forward
get
to
off.
seeing you on the track, dude. It's time to get off.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Everybody, make sure you follow the socials. Make sure you follow Brandon. Look for him on your local racetrack, Knoxville Nationals, Eldora. He'll be there, and you should be here next Monday because we got more stuff planned for you. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next week.
You ain't gotta go home, but you can't stay here. Get out of here, man. Hey, cut them lights. Get out of here and go home.